The structure and function of fish gills. For animals that live in water, obtaining oxygen is a particular challenge. Water is more viscous and dense than air, and water contains a much lower percentage of oxygen. This figure shows how a fish's anatomy helps it obtain oxygen from water. Here, the blue arrows show the flow of water into the mouth, over the gill arches, and out. Let's take a closer look at how gas exchange occurs in the gills. The gill filaments are made up of lamellae, and you can see in this closer view that the lamellae are a series of flattened plates. Water flows past the lamellae in this direction, and blood flows through capillaries in the lamellae in the opposite direction. Oxygen-poor blood returning from the body tissues to the gills is shown in blue, and oxygen-rich blood returning from the gills to body tissues is shown in red. Since water and blood are flowing next to each other but in opposite directions, this is called countercurrent flow. Over the course of this countercurrent flow, gases are exchanged between the fluids. We'll focus here on the movement of oxygen. Countercurrent exchange is very efficient. Let's look at why. We're now looking at a single lamella. For simplicity, we're showing just one capillary, but you can still see the progression from oxygen-poor blood on this side to oxygen-rich blood on this side. You can also see that the direction of blood flow is opposite of the direction of water flow. The numbers on the arrows represent the partial pressure of oxygen at each location. Will oxygen undergo net diffusion between the water and blood at this boxed location? And if so, in which direction? Yes, into the blood. Yes, into the water. Or no net diffusion. A gas always diffuses from where its partial pressure is higher to where it is lower. At this location, the partial pressure of oxygen is higher in the water, where it is 120, than in the blood, where it is 110. So here, oxygen will diffuse from the water into the blood in the capillary. Now let's look at how countercurrent flow enables gas exchange all along the gill. When blood enters the gills, it encounters water that has given up most, but not all, of its oxygen. The blood picks up a little oxygen and moves a bit farther along the capillary. Now the blood has a slightly higher partial pressure of oxygen, but it's also encountering water that has given up a little less of its oxygen. Since the partial pressure of oxygen at this new location is higher in both water and blood, but is again greater in the water than in the bloodstream, oxygen still diffuses from the water to the blood, and the blood picks up more oxygen and moves farther along. This exchange occurs along the whole length of the capillary, with the blood continuously picking up oxygen and encountering water with a higher oxygen concentration. As it reaches the far end, the blood has become oxygen-rich, but it now encounters water that has not yet given up any of its oxygen. This water has just started its journey through the gills, and its partial pressure is higher than anywhere in the bloodstream, so the blood picks up even more oxygen. You can see that oxygen diffuses from the water into the fish's bloodstream along the entire length of the capillary, as shown here by the black arrows. This is what makes countercurrent exchange so efficient, and why the fish gill is an excellent example of the evolutionary relationship between structure and function.